All right. I'm here again with the last part of chapter 2 of the book Sugar Hill. So we left off with Flambe and Ben and Marie are now continuing their journey. This is probably their first week out after the earthquake, and they need to find shelter. So Marie was trying to find food and she lost her shoe, and so Flambe took, I guess it was, I don't know, he called it a coney or something, and I don't know if it was a bird or some sort of animal, and he took the skin of it and he made a shoe from it. But Marie was just scared that if she couldn't continue or if she got hurt, that they would just leave her behind. She'd have to fend for herself. And Ben felt the same way too. Flambe was the one that they knew that they had to depend on because Flambe was the strongest of the three. So they all were like trying to survive the wilderness right now. So they are looking for a place to sleep. And a storm has started, and the lightning just kind of struck a tree and caught it on fire. Come on, Ben, let's drag that piece of wood over here. Just as they reached the mouth of the cave, the rain began. The downpour extinguished the burning logwood stump. Flambe looked at Marie and asked, "Why would you rather be out in that?" She shook her head. "Well, then help us make torches. We'll chase the bats away." Once the fire was started and was burning in the trunk of the logwood tree, Marie made torches out of pieces of logwood and wrapped them with Old Man's beard. Old Man's beard. Never heard of that before. I'm assuming it's that dry type of weed that you get, and you can actually start a fire with it really easily. The fire rose higher and cast an orange glow throughout the cave. The three clearly see the hundreds of bats covering the ceiling. Ew, that's so creepy. The floor of the cave was covered with white guano. That's so nasty. The heat of the fire began to stir the bats, and Flambe ordered Ben and Marie to cover their faces and hands with clothing. He stripped off his neckerchief and wrapped it around the donkey's eyes. Then he and Ben took the torches and lifted them high. As the heat of the flames seared hanging bats, they began screeching and flying blindly into one another. The donkey brayed and reared on its hind legs. Marie began screaming and hovered against the cave side. Scores of bats flew against her. Some fell to the ground, and others flew on, surging out like a black cloud, leaving with incredible speed. The torches forced the bats out into the rainy night, except for a few that remained behind, flying blindly into the sides of the cave or in circles. Ben and Flambe struck them with the torches, killing some and stunning others. Using the tips of the torches, they knocked the bats toward the fire, where the flames consumed them. "We must keep the fire going all night," said Flambe. "Keep it high and across the entire mouth of the cave. They won't return, at least not tonight." Ben went to Marie, who was still cowering in the corner. "It's all right, Marie. The cave is clear." Marie fell into his protective arms. Flambe observed them, a cynical, almost sad expression on his rough, handsome face. The rain continued after a while. Even Marie got used to the odor of the cave. They cooked their meal and ate it, then spread out dirty lengths of cloth near the fire. Let's hope it lets up before morning. It will be hard enough getting down a muddy mountainside without having to deal with the rain. How far is it to Montego Bay? Marie asked wearily. How long must we trek over this darn country? Except they didn't say darn. She said the bad word. A day or two, maybe less, replied Flambe. Groaning, Marie took off her makeshift boots and said quietly, I don't think I can make it. She trying to get left. My feet are in bad condition. Ben examined her feet. Jesus, Captain, they're covered with broken blisters. They're liable to get infected. Flambe, I don't think Flambe really cares. Flambe frowned and said almost gently, They must pain you very much, Marie. Marie didn't answer. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she began to cry. Ben dumped the dregs of that stew and filled the pot with rainwater. Put it on the fire to boil. Ben did as he was told. Marie watched, her eyes veiled with tears of pain. He's being nice to her. I'm going to fix you up a soak, said the pirate captain. Marie's eyes widened. Soak my feet? But we eat in that pot. Do you want your feet to heal or don't you? It's all the same to me. If you can't make it down the mountainside, we'll have to leave you here. You wouldn't. We can hardly carry you down a slippery mountain. Marie stared at the curtain of rain covering the opening of the cave. When will it all end? She cried, wondering if it would be better in Montego Bay. She had heard the Bay area had been colonized by a higher class of people than those at Port Royal. So I'm thinking that Port Royal was full of criminals and full of pirates, people, just low-class people like that. And then Montego Bay must be the Europeans who had money and, they had a classy society. Or would she be driven from town like a diseased dog? Flambe tested the water. Ouch! That's hot enough to boil a snapper. Come on, Marie, get up on that ledge. Ben gathered Marie into his arms and set her on the rock jutting out of the side of the cave. Then Flambe began breaking off bits of bat excrement and dropping it into the boiling water. What are you doing, Captain? Asked Ben. There are great healing properties in that bat poop, replied the red-headed man, stirring the mixture with a stick. Don't ask me what, but I've seen it put on open festering wounds. Ew, bat poop. Within a few hours, they were healed. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about eating out of the pot after the soak. You'll rinse it out good and we'll boil it once again. While I stir this stuff up, break the rest of the blisters on Marie's feet. But Ben started to protest. Do as I say, unless you want to leave her here. Ben picked up the machete. Using its sharp tip, he broke the blisters on Marie's feet. Then Flambe brought over the earthenware pot. Ow! She cried as she lowered her feet into it. It's too hot. Put them in, Marie. It's got to be hot or your feet won't heal. Little be little. Marie's feet became, I think this is supposed to be little by little, Marie's feet became accustomed to the temperature of the water. She leaned back against the ledge. "Oh, that feels good, so good," she murmured and closed her eyes. "She's fallen asleep," whispered Ben. "Let her sleep. When the water cools, take her feet out and put her on the floor to sleep." Flambe stepped over the burning log and stood at the door of the cave. He didn't like the rain, but it would make their descent into the valley perilous. Despite the problems the rain brought, its sounds of beating against the ground and on the surrounding foliage soothed Flambe and made him sleepy too. He helped Ben lay Marie down next to the fire, and he lay down himself near her and fell into a deep sleep. Ben emptied the pot, rinsed it out with rainwater, and refilled it. Oh, that man was working. He placed it on the fire to boil all night and cleanse himself. Then he lay down close to Marie, so close he could smell the scent of her body. I bet you she was musty. He meant to fall asleep immediately, but lay awake staring at the ceiling of the cave. He was filled with apprehension about the immediate future. Oh boy, I think that's foreshadowing. All right, well, that is the end of chapter 2. And I will see you guys again for the reading of chapter 3.